What's going on, guys? It's your host, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of Mofobo Network Presents here on YouTube, the show where we talk about all the things that are going on in the world of sports, the most up-to-date topics, the most controversial things that may happen, and so much more. As always, thank you guys so much for taking some time to check this video out. It means a lot to me. And if you end up enjoying this video, which I can almost guarantee you will, make sure you like and also subscribe to the Mofobo Network Presents YouTube channel where you don't miss any videos that we post here every Wednesday. And there's a couple other things that I will share later on in the video that I'm sure you're going to want to find out about. But like we mentioned just a few seconds ago, we always have things to talk about in the world of sports. A lot of sports have already been coming back. Major League Baseball is now officially underway. NFL training camps just started basically a day or two ago. And I want to actually talk about football and something that happened just a few days ago. Back on Saturday, it was announced throughout the NFL that the New York Jets had finally decided to trade away their disgruntled star in Jamal Adams, and they ended up trading him to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks gave up their safety Bradley McDougald, a first-round pick in 2021 and 2022, and a third-round pick in 2021. And also the Jets did give up a fourth-round pick, I believe, in 2021. So this saga, you can say, has now officially ended. And it did not end, I would say, in the Jets' favor. And before I really get into the nitty-gritty of this entire thing and my feelings towards it, I will say one thing and one thing only. This is classic New York Jets. This doesn't surprise me one bit that the Jets did this. You know, everybody was saying, oh, he's not going to get traded. He's just trying to force the Jets to pay more money. Well, the Jets have never been a team that's big on paying and massively paying their star players. Now you could say, oh, what about Le'Veon Bell? Well, I'll get to Le'Veon Bell in just a few short moments. But this whole fiasco, if you want to call it that, kind of dated back a couple weeks ago when Jamal Adams pretty much verbatim requested a trade from the New York Jets. When I first heard that, it didn't surprise me. First of all, I don't know a lot of players that would be wanting to play for a team like the New York Jets right now. And Jamal Adams, who ever since he got into the league has been nothing but a tremendous player, the best defensive player on the Jets in quite some time, one of the top three, if not probably the best safety, or you could at least argue maybe one of the top two safeties in the National Football League, and he's only 24 years of age. And he has suffered a lot of, for lack of a better term, mediocre to bad football. And I think last year, in a way, kind of took the cake because the Jets parted ways or fired Todd Bowles, and they were obviously looking for a new head coach. They already had a GM in place in Mike Maccagnan, which, to be fair, I think Mike Maccagnan, in his time with the Jets, was relatively solid. I don't think he was great. I don't think he was terrible either. I think that he was in the process of getting this team to be slowly but surely more competitive. I know that he really tried, the first option to try to bring in Kirk Cousins via free agency. That didn't work out. So they traded up in the draft and drafted Sam Darnold to get a franchise quarterback. I think that was smart. I think that was good because I think Sam Darnold has a lot of talent. I just think he lacks a lot of talent around him. And last year he had mono. I mean, when was the last time we said a player was going to be out due to mononucleosis? Only the Jets could have something like that happen. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I can't even fault the Jets for that. But anyway, the Jets went through a couple of names, and two that came up that were most talked about were Mike McCarthy, who is now the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and Adam Gase, the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who had just been let go from his time with the Miami Dolphins. And it was reported a couple days before the official announcement of who the Jets head coach was going to be, that it looked like it was all but done that Mike McCarthy was going to be the Jets head coach. He had even said publicly that he wanted to be the head coach of this football team. People all over the media world, especially here in the New York, New Jersey area, were banging their hands and fists on the table saying, we got to get Mike McCarthy. He's the right guy. I know that maybe the game seems like it's passed him by, but he's still a very good head coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He knows what it takes to win. Well, the Jets decided that they were not interested in Mike McCarthy enough to give him the head coaching position. Instead, they ended up hiring Adam Gase. And it was very laughable because, again, it was a classic Jets hire because Adam Gase, in many ways, is a puppet. And what do I mean by that? I mean by it in this way. This is how I imagine the thinking process went from Woody Johnson, Chris Johnson, just the ownership itself, because this is how they've operated since they took over the Jets. They are not a big fan of spending a lot of money on big name players to try to win. They're not that interested in winning. I've said it before numerous times here on YouTube, as well as on the Mofobo Network podcast, that the interest of the owners is not the same as the interest of the fans. That's just a reality that a lot of us have to accept and have to go from there. So let's keep that in mind as I go forward with this. When the Johnsons interviewed Mike McCarthy, what they ended up realizing was that McCarthy wanted a lot of control of football operations. And I think Mike McCagnon was probably willing to do that. The Johnsons, on the other hand, not so much, because I think they probably assumed that McCarthy would want to be aggressive in free agency and trying to spend a considerable amount of money to overhaul this Jets team, a team that was routinely going 5-11 under Todd Bowles. I mean, that was pretty much the norm by the time he was let go, that they were just going to go 5-11 every single year, and somehow Todd Bowles would be praised for it. God only knows why. But anyway, basically, in this situation with Mike McCarthy, the Johnsons just didn't want to take that extra step to try to be a winning team. They are okay with winning as long as it doesn't force them to spend a whole lot. Adam Gase was probably also the cheaper option. And he also, in many ways, pretty much, I think, manipulated the Jets ownership and said, look, I'm the better option than Mike McCarthy. I understand the quarterback position better. You know, they called him a quarterback whisperer for not the world's greatest reasons. I mean, it's not like, he coached Peyton Manning, but then again, who's really coaching Peyton Manning? Nobody. Peyton Manning is a coach on the field. So you can't really do that. And then he coached Ryan Tannehill, and Tannehill didn't get really good until he went to a half-decent team with decent weapons around him and nearly took the Tennessee Titans to the Super Bowl. So I don't really know exactly how you can defend and say, this is why I think Adam Gase is a quarterback whisperer. Anyway, so the Jets decided to hire Adam Gase, and then there were all these reports that were flying out that said McCagnon and Gase are not on the same page. They're constantly having arguments about player personnel and blah, blah, blah. Then a few days, I think almost a week or two after Adam Gase was hired, the Jets announced that they had fired Mike McCagnon. But it gets better. They ended up giving the interim GM spot to Adam Gase. That's right. The head coach was now the interim general manager. Now he had complete control of bringing in somebody that he knew wouldn't fire him, especially not in a short period of time. And as a result, they went out and hired Joe Douglas, who was the assistant general manager at the time with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I think Joe Douglas definitely deserves an opportunity to be a general manager. I just think that this was a situation where he was obviously going to be criticized because he was very good friends with Adam Gase. And as a result, Adam Gase hired Joe Douglas. So even though you could say Joe Douglas is the boss of Adam Gase, no, it's actually the other way around. A lot of the moves that you may see from time to time might not be fully because of Joe Douglas. It might also be because Adam Gase probably wants to have a say in a lot of these things. Understandably, in a way, because he's the head coach, but at the same time, if Adam Gase wanted that, then he should have just said, well, make me the permanent GM, I'll be the head coach and GM, and we'll go from there. I mean, that's honestly what, he could have done if he so choose to. But the Jets hired Joe Douglas, and I have never in my life seen a general manager lose a power struggle to a head coach that you brought in. But this is why I believe that Mike McCagnon was not part of the interview process when it came to Adam Gase. I don't think Mike McCagnon wanted Adam Gase. I think he knew the writing on the wall, but the Johnsons wanted to go with a cheaper option. They got manipulated by some of the things that Gase said, and as a result, Mike McCagnon lost his job, hasn't gotten an opportunity since, and Adam Gase is still the head coach of this Jets football team. Then the Jets start this past season, and everything was looking great through the first half of the first game against the Buffalo Bills. Mosley gets hurt, out for the year. The Jets collapse, lose that game. Then Sam Darnold apparently gets mononucleosis, and that just blew everything up. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable when they said, oh, yeah, he has mono. I'm sorry, what? No, he didn't tear his ACL. He didn't get he didn't fracture his back or anything. No, he has mononucleosis. Sam Darnold was practicing social distancing before it got cool. That's what this is. That's basically what he had to do. He had to quarantine himself until he was fit to actually play. And he lost a considerable amount of weight that he had to spend the majority of the rest of the season building back up. And the Jets really started the year 0-3, I think. And then they had an early bye week. They got blown out by Philadelphia. Then they come home in a relatively primetime game at 4 o'clock against the Cowboys. And they stunningly beat the Cowboys. And then the Jets continued to lose games that they should have won. Particularly, they lost 2 games to 2 winless teams. You tell me the last time a team lost to not 1, but 2 teams who at the time they were playing them had not won a game. They had lost to the Dolphins, and they eventually lost to the Bengals. Now, people want to say, oh, look at that 6-1 finish or whatever the heck it was, that great finish down the stretch. They didn't play really anybody down the stretch. Okay? And by the time they got on a hot streak, they were already well out of playoff contention. And everybody wanted to say, be positive. They went 7-9. Dude, you went 5-11 for 7 years and you got 2 more wins, yet you still finished 2 games below 500. So I don't know exactly how you can praise that, especially if you're an older Jets fan who has experienced, countless times of pain, suffering, anguish, frustrating situations in the history of this team since 1969. I wrote a damn book about this that you can go check out, by the way, JETS, Pain, Pain, Pain on Amazon, hardcover and ebook for the price of $19.69. Little self-plug there. But anyway, and I'll probably mention it again later on. But anyway, let's get back to Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams requests a trade. Now, he had already been in contact about possibly getting traded during the season, this past season, particularly the Cowboys. And even during this offseason, it looked like it might be the Cowboys, but it all just depended on how much the Cowboys were willing to give up. That never really came to fruition. I think the Cowboys talked to Joe Douglas, but I think Joe Douglas really, really wanted to try to get a deal done and trade him at the last possible second. Like that was going to be the last resort, And that's the one thing I do believe in Joe Douglas that he said is that, they never had the intention from the get-go to trade Jamal Adams, but it just got to the point where I don't think they had much of a choice at all. Matter of fact, they didn't have a choice at all, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But then Jamal Adams, just a week or 2 ago, had an article from the New York Post where he called out Joe Douglas and Adam Gase. With Adam Gase, he said, Adam Gase is not a leader, he's not a good coach, and we need to bring in someone else. I think Jamal Adams was very high on having Greg Williams, who is the defensive coordinator, who had previous head coaching experience and did a pretty solid job taking over for Hugh Jackson after he was fired in Cleveland 2 years ago. I think that, that would have been a most likely candidate had the Jets decide to let go of Adam Gase in the middle of the season. But Jamal Adams called him out, something that a lot of us, especially myself and a lot of Jets fans, all agreed with. Adam Gase is not a good coach. He's just not. He's very incompetent. I'm sorry. If people take offense to this, tough. It's the truth. He's incompetent. He's not a quarterback whisperer. He's screwed up a lot. And they have very little talent, so he's not even going to have – you really think he's going to have a lot more success this year? I highly doubt that. Anyway, so Jamal Adams calls out Adam Gase, as well he should. I'm glad that somebody on that team did. Then he called out Joe Douglas and said Joe Douglas had promised both him and his agent that they were going to get a contract. They were going to give him a contract extension, a big hefty one, to be one of the highest paid defensive players in the NFL, and he never got it. And that's why then I want to shift to then Joe Douglas speaking 2 days ago on the Michael Kay show on the Yes Network 98.7 ESPN. They interviewed him, and here are a couple quotes that I wrote down that I wanted to share with you. The first one was that Joe Douglas on the trade for, on trading Jamal Adams, it was, quote, a move we couldn't pass up. You actually could have passed it up. And again, I'll explain all of this in just a moment. Another quote, an opportunity to make our team better. Really? Really? With the history of this team and the history of very bad draft pick after draft pick, especially in the first round, you really honestly believe that this is somehow going to make their team better even 2 or 3 years down the road? I highly doubt that. And then Joe Douglas on what Jamal Adams had said about offering him a contract. He said, quote, we never promised Jamal and his agent a contract. That was one of those quotes that didn't surprise me they said it, because what else is he going to say? Even if he's lying, is he really going to say that? No. He's not going to admit that Jamal Adams was telling the truth. Now, Jamal said some other things that were pretty insulting to Joe Douglas, and I do give him credit when he was asked those questions on the show, and he kind of held it like a professional, saying, look, it's a business and things like that. But I know deep down it probably upset Joe Douglas in a way because he hasn't had much of a relationship with Jamal Adams. And unfortunately, this kind of goes all the way to the top with the ownership. And Joe Douglas is just stuck in the middle, like a lot of other general managers with this football team have had over the last, 10 years. So it's unfortunate for Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas did quote saying, we're trying to build a team that's about drafting, developing, and extending players. This was not a good example of that, if that's what you're trying to tell me. And then when asked about Adam Gase, Joe Douglas, not surprisingly, said, quote, we have the right, quote, coach, end quote. Joe Douglas is saying that because he's buddy-buddy with Adam Gase, because Adam Gase hired him. Of course he's not going to say that, because honestly, I wouldn't be surprised that if Joe Douglas called out Adam Gase and really questioned him, that Adam Gase could go over him to ownership and get him out like he did with Mike McCagnon. I have never seen a coach, especially for the Jets, have this much control and power over everything that goes on. I mean, the last coach I could see having that much power is someone like Bill Parcells 20 freaking years ago. A lot of the coaches since then, Herm Edwards, Eric Mangini, Rex Ryan, Todd Bowles, they didn't have this type of power. How does someone like Adam Gase have this much power? It's actually ridiculous, in my opinion. It's laughable. It actually is. Then the Jets finally decided on Saturday to trade Jamal Adams to the Seahawks. Now, Jamal Adams has 2 years left on his rookie deal, and then he'll become an unrestricted free agent unless he gets a contract extension, which I think will be very likely with the Seahawks. Maybe not this year. Maybe they'll let it play out this year, and then they'll go back to the table. But I think most likely Jamal Adams is going to be in Seattle for quite some time. And that defense just got a lot better. I mean, you already had Bobby Wagner, who is arguably one of the top 10, top 15 at least defensive players in the NFL. And then you add a player like Jamal Adams, you're almost creating a Legion of Boom Part 2. You're slowly developing that. And now that defense went from maybe being a top 15, top 20 defense to all of a sudden you're probably going to be in the top 10, with the fact that you already locked up your franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson and your team is still relatively young and ready to compete, the Seahawks just became a much more likely Super Bowl contender in the NFC, in my opinion, by adding Jamal Adams. Now, talking about the basically what the Seahawks gave up for Jamal Adams, is it too much? I think it's somewhat of an overpayment, especially for a safety. I mean, you gave up 3 picks and one of your starting safeties for another safety. You did get a 4th-round pick back, but still, it's an overpayment. But the Seahawks won the deal because it's the Jets. If you're a Jets fan, especially a Jets fan the past 25, 30 years, do you feel that excited that the Jets got 2 first-round picks in the next 2 years? Are you excited that they have 4 first-round picks over the next 2 drafts? No. because they haven't proved anything. Since 2013, they've had 6 first-round picks, 6 first-round pick selections. Only 2 of them still play in the NFL, and none of them are on the Jets anymore. Leonard Williams, you traded to the Giants, which I thought was a pretty smart move, and you just traded Jamal Adams. But Sheldon Richardson, gone. D. Milner, don't get me started with him. He's gone. And yes, you also, I forgot to mention, you also still have Sam Darnold, but maybe only for this year, because now that the Jets have multiple first-round picks, and because there's going to be some pretty good quarterbacks coming into the draft over the next 2 years, if Sam Darnold doesn't pan out and you don't want to pay him more money, you can just let him walk, and you'll just go and get another rookie quarterback on a rookie deal where once again you're paying very little and hoping that maybe you get lucky with them being good. This has been the Jets ever since the Johnsons took over. Matter of fact, this has actually been the Jets for a handful of years before the Johnsons came into existence. The last decent owner the Jets have had, decent, is Leon Hess. Because Leon Hess, albeit he was pretty old, he brought in Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And they nearly started something really big. And the Jets were on the verge of doing something big. But once Leon Hess passed away and the candidates for the new ownership were between Woody Johnson and James Dolan, Bill Belichick 20 years ago already figured out that this was going to be a shambling disaster one way or the other. So basically, it's just another classic Jets situation. This shouldn't surprise any Jets fan. And there are a lot of Jets fans out there that I've seen that are saying, good riddance, he's a clown, we don't need him. Well, I'm not saying that Jets fans are clowns, because they're not. There are some of the most loyal fans in the National Football League, and they have suffered with poor ownership, poor coaching, lousy players, lousy football in general. And they deserve a lot better, because they don't deserve for a team that plays in the biggest media market having to compete with a much more recently successful franchise in the New York Giants. You know, you want to try to have as much success and make people want to come play for your team. But the Johnsons are interested in a few things. One, they're interested in not spending very much money. They don't pay for players. And again, I know you guys are gonna bring up Le'Veon Bell. Well, I'll tell you this right now. Mike McCagnon was the only one at that time that wanted Le'Veon Bell. He gave him the money, as rightfully deserved, and the Jets got a multi-dimensional weapon for Sam Darnold. But the Johnsons didn't want to pay the $50 million or whatever it was that they gave Le'Veon Bell. And Adam Gase, as it was proven in the media, and it ended up being true, that Adam Gase never wanted Le'Veon Bell. He would have gladly traded him if he got a really good offer, or even a decent offer, or just an offer. Who knows? It's Adam Gase. So I can't count that, because that wasn't the Johnsons' decision to do that. They were reluctant to do it. They were forced to, because McCagnon was saying, dude, sometimes you got to spend money to make money. The Johnsons, just like the Wilpons owning the Mets, don't want to do that. They never have been like that. That's not their MO. That's just not how it goes. So that's what you deal with when it comes to the ownership of the New York Jets. But you go back to this whole situation with Jamal Adams. Jets fans, I know you want to say that Jamal Adams was being a crybaby and being a clown and being disrespectful, but you know deep down he had a reason to feel that way. Because in all honesty, this had nothing to do with the money. This primarily had to do with Jamal Adams no longer wanted to be on the Jets. He understood the culture. He understood how ownership works. He understands the history of the team and why it's been like this for so long. And he didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So he used this situation as an opportunity to get out, go play for a championship, possibly championship football team, and eventually get paid like he deserves. Because he's not going to get either one of those within the next 3 years still playing for the Jets. This is just how the Jets operate. This is how they've always operated. So if you're a Jets fan, especially an older one, this doesn't come to you as a surprise. I have several Jets fans in my family. And None of them are surprised. They just laughed at it. It's like, oh, whatever, you know? And they got 2 first-round picks, and people want to say, oh, that's amazing. We have so much for the future. How many times have Jets fans said that over the last 30, 35 years? Or 40? Or 50? How many times have they said that? Do I have to go back to 83 and try to explain how somehow the Jets decided to draft Ken O'Brien over Dan Marino when at that point Dan Marino was the best player and quarterback on the board? Do I really have to? Do I have to explain when Rich Kotite decided to draft Kyle Brady over freaking Warren Sapp? Do I have to explain that? Like, do I have to go into detail? And if for you younger Jets fans, do I have to explain how the Jets thought that D. Milner was going to be a once-in-a-generational talent and ended up being one of the biggest busts in Jets history? Leonard Williams? I mean, come on. This happens over and over again. And because it's the same damn ownership, of course we're going to deal with this crap. Of course you're going to get frustrated. Of course it's not going to pan out. It's already proven that it doesn't work. This is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, knowing the result. And that's how the Jets operate. And this is just another one of the many different situations in Jets history since the Jets won Super Bowl III, where they just do things that just make their franchise laughable. People want to say, oh, the Browns are the laughing stock of football. Oh, no, it's the Texans. No, the most consistent laughing stock in the National Football League has been the Jets. If you don't believe me, one of 2 things. 1, just go look up the history of the Jets. 2, go buy my book and read it, and it'll say everything you need to know. I can guarantee you that. I spent a lot of time on researching this football team and learning about it and understanding that Jets ownership does not care about winning. Jets fans, the interest that you guys have is not the same as the interest of Woody Johnson, Chris Johnson, or whoever is in charge at this point. Because sometimes you got to wonder, who really is in charge of this football team? You are constantly the second fiddle to the New York Giants, even though the Giants have been less successful over the past 2 or 3 years than you. But the Jets, particularly the Johnsons, love to be on the front, middle, and back page of every newspaper in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, and at times all over this damn country, whether it's good or bad, because guess what? In their minds, there is no such thing as bad publicity. If you don't believe me, Rex Ryan, Tim Tebow, Brett Favre, I mean, come on now. This is recent stuff. This is stuff, and by the way, all this is with the Johnsons. So this whole situation with Jamal Adams goes right up to the freaking top with the team, with the people that own this damn football team. The Jets lost this deal because no matter who they draft, whether they are the second coming of Peyton Manning, it won't freaking matter because the Jets will find a way to screw them up, make them mad enough that they want to get traded or leave just before they have to get paid. If you don't believe me, just wait in another year when Sam Darnold starts getting ready to get his second contract. The Jets are putting him in a position right now with the team that they have right now. They're less talented than they were a year ago when they went 7-9. 7-9. And you somehow consider that a good season. Somehow people considered that a good season. Oh, well done, Adam Gase. Well, Adam Gase is a clown. He's a puppet. He's a puppet to the Johnsons, ladies and gentlemen. And Jamal Adams is the smartest man in the room because he understood that. So he brought up this whole situation to get him traded. He wanted to be traded from the get-go. He didn't care necessarily about the money. He wanted to primarily get the hell out of New York, and he got his wish. He held on long enough to get out because now training camp is really starting, and the Jets had no choice. Either you basically just let him stay on the team but constantly bitch and moan, or you make the hard decision to let him go. And you chose to let him go. and you got a good haul for him, and you're already hearing about, from Bradley McDougald himself saying, oh, I heard that Jadeveon Clowney said to the Jets, come get me. The Jets aren't going to spend any of that type of money. I would be shocked if they do get Jadeveon Clowney. It will be on a 1-year, $10 million deal, and that will be nothing. And you really think Jadeveon Clowney wants to get paid $10 million for 1 year to play for the mediocre New York Jets? Are you kidding me? Come on now. Come on. He put that out there because he wants more teams to get in. But if the Jets are the only ones, I feel bad for Jadeveon Clowney. Even though he'll be with a really good defensive coordinator in Greg Williams, who's very aggressive, his head coach is a joke. The Jets have had joke coach after joke coach since Bill Parcells 20 freaking years ago. You had arguably one of the greatest coaches in NFL history ready to be the head coach, and he retired on a napkin. And I'm surprised that napkin's not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame right now. Leave it to the Jets to allow these things to happen, to be at times blown out of proportion, and just put themselves in a bad light. But they do it for one reason and one reason only. There is no such thing as bad publicity. And with that being said, that is going to do it for this edition of Mofobo Network Presents. Thank you guys so much for checking this out. I really appreciate it. I'm very passionate about these things. I live in the New York, New Jersey area. The Jets are constantly talked about so much. This Jamal Adams thing was pretty much football-wise the only thing in New York, New Jersey that anybody wanted to talk about. I'm glad it's finally over. I'm not surprised Jamal Adams got traded. And it's just classic Jets, ladies and gentlemen. But again, if you really enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like and you subscribe, and you flick the bell as well. That's what I was told, but flick the bell so you don't miss any new episodes we post every single Wednesday here on YouTube. We always talk about big topics and interesting topics here on Mofobo Network Presents. This was something I felt like was definitely worth talking about, and I really appreciate it again. And comment down below what your thoughts are about this trade, what your thoughts are about this whole situation. I would love to hear from you guys. If you want to check out more, other than obviously checking out this YouTube channel, you go and check out the Mofobo Network podcast. That's right, we have a podcast. It's on Anchor and Spotify. It's Mofobo Network Podcast. You could search that or search Neil Villapiano and you will find it. And we have a Facebook page where you can stay up to date with new episodes that we post every single, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We post new podcast episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and a new YouTube video every single Wednesday like this one. So if you go and check out Mofobo Network Podcast or Presents on Facebook, you can stay up to date there. You can follow me on Twitter at THENVPSHOW and on Instagram at NVPQB11. Also, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about, I have a New Jersey Devils podcast called Devils State of Mind Podcast. It's on the Hockey Podcast Network, where basically we stream it from every place you can think of for podcasts. Google Podcasts, iTunes, Apple, everything in between. Just search Hockey Podcast Network or Devils State of Mind. You'll find it. You can listen to new episodes. We have a website. Just type in devilstateofmind.com, and you can check out the website where you can stay up to date with the new episodes. We post new episodes every single Monday, so we just posted another one this past Monday, and obviously we'll have one next Monday as well. We have a Twitter for the podcast at Devils State and an Instagram at Devils State of Mind, and also we have a Facebook page just like Mofobo. Just search Devils State of Mind, and you'll find it, where you can stay up to date like everything else with the new episodes we post, again, every single Monday. And last, but certainly not least, and this is very important for you Jets fans checking this video out, make sure you go and check out my book, as I mentioned before, on Amazon.com. JETS, Pain, Pain, Pain. The pain and ecstasy Now, forget about the ecstasy of being a New York Jets fan. So if you're a Jets fan like yourself, a football fan, if you know someone who's one of those, or if you just want to support me, please go check it out on Amazon. It's available for hardcover and ebook for the price of $19.69. And if you're a Jets fan, you know darn well why I chose that price. So thank you guys so much for checking out this edition of Mofobo Network Presents, and we will see you in the next video. Everyone continue to please be safe out there. Wear a mask. Make sure you have, some sort of disinfectant, hand sanitizer, wear gloves if you want to feel extra safe. Wherever you go out, practice social distancing if possible, because we're trying to really flatten the curve here and trying to get us to a point where we can, give ourselves a lot of time to get a vaccine for COVID-19. And the sooner we do that, the sooner we can get back to some form of normalcy down the near future. And thank you particularly to all the essential workers out there in hospitals, supermarkets, pharmacies, and everything in between, because without you guys constantly being open and working very hard to provide things that we need on a day-to-day basis, we would be in a lot bigger trouble than we are right now. And I, for one, greatly appreciate you guys working so hard day in and day out. It definitely does not go unnoticed. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to everyone who checked out this edition of Mofobo Network Presents, and God bless.